Hello and welcome to another video. In this one, I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite animes that I think will really shift your life perspective. And what I mean by that is just by experiencing this show, I think it will help you to look at life differently, look at it from a different point of view, just based on the ways that there's commentary on society, whether it is real world society or a fictional one in the series, just the way that the characters are changed throughout, and just all of those different factors that would then lead to you just maybe considering looking at life just a little bit differently. And I think that's one of the coolest things with anime, to be able to just give you that different life perspective through the stories that are told. It can be done in a lot of different things in traditional film and television, but I think anime does that just a little bit more creatively and gets a little bit more out there with the concepts and the way that those different things are explored. So let's jump into my picks. First, we have Psycho-Pass. This is probably one of my favorite cyberpunk series, and it might be one of my favorite animes of all time. But the way that this movie explores morality and control within a society, it's really interesting. It takes place, like I said, in a cyberpunk world. It's a very futuristic society that's kind of run, or at least the government system is run by this artificial intelligence. You can see these really cool looking guns that the police officers have, and they're basically tied into this artificial intelligence that is essentially judge, jury, and executioner, and the cops are forced to make the decisions of how they're going to execute justice based on what this system analyzes about the person that they're pointing it towards. So basically, the psychoanalysis of a criminal or potential criminal that these cops are coming into contact with is analyzed by this artificial intelligence and then relayed to the officer and told to basically do whatever is necessary based on that decision and that psychoanalysis. But the moral question comes into play in the subjectivity of justice in, is it right for a computer system to make these kinds of decisions? Where's the human element, as far as just because this person might potentially commit a horrific crime in the future, is that set in stone? Is that fate? Or is there a potential for change? And that's kind of the moral question that's explored. And it just balances the whole analysis of like humanity versus technology and the different moral questions that come into play with it. So it's one of my favorite just worlds within anime. And I think one that really kind of gives you a different point of view, especially as technology just becomes more and more integrated into our society and the significant advancements of artificial intelligence just over the past few years. It's a really interesting look at how that commentary would work in a potential future society. Next, we have Frieren Beyond Journey's End, and this is one of my favorite anime series of the past couple of years, and is really fixing to be one of my favorite anime series of all time. I went into this one just based on a really cool premise, and I actually watched it when it was premiering, long before, a lot of people started watching it when it was up for, Anime of the Year nominations and stuff. But what's so cool about this one is it is a fantasy series, and it is told majority through the perspective of an elf, which isn't really a point of view that we get to look at all that often in fantasy. And what's really cool about it is it really reshapes your perspective of time. You kind of get to see life through the lens of Frieren, someone who's been around for over 1,000 years, and how she connects, or specifically doesn't connect, with humanity specifically, just because in her mind the lifespan of a human is kind of the blink of an eye, or at least pretty close to it. And so up until the point where this story kind of kicks off, she hasn't appreciated that time that she's had with different humans, some friends she's made along the way, and with different life circumstances happening and different people she comes to meet, it changes the way that she views those things, and she starts to appreciate the little things around her, the little moments with different people and friends that she's come to make along the way. It explores all of that in such interesting ways. That's probably my favorite theme of ongoing throughout this series, is just appreciating the little things, reshaping your point of view of time, even though we view it ourselves as a human, just getting to look at it through the lens of something that lives for hundreds, if not thousands of years. It really shapes your point of view in an interesting way. And I think even from a religious point of view, looking at it from the perspective of God, who's been around for, in our minds, eternity, and just seeing how he is so intentional about the ways that he interacts with us. And I think just the way that this story explores it in this film or in the series is just a really neat way to look at things in the grand scope of just looking at time on a more longer scale as opposed to just within our lifetime and the decisions that we make, the things that we choose to be involved in, be it good or bad things. I just think it's a really cool way to look at that. It really gives me more focus to look at the meaning in every day, the little things, the small experiences you might have with your family, your wife, your children, your friends, just looking at those from a different point of view. Next, we have probably one of my favorite shows of all time. I love Attack on Titan, and the way that this show really just impacted me over the past 10 years, because it just wrapped up a year or two ago after like a 10-year run. It was one of the first anime series that I started watching, so it got me into the format, and just seeing how it shaped my outlook on life and the world around us. It sounds really kind of pretentious in some ways to say that, but it just really stuck with me, this series, and the way that it explores good and evil, the fate that we might carry, the freedom that we might have in that balance, finding a fate versus freedom balance within our lives, or are we all fated for certain things? This cycle of things and how, whether it is positive or more negative outlook, the things that we do and how that can shape a society or a people to think certain ways. I'm getting real deep real quick, but I love this series, the way that it explores that moral question across all of them. I'm trying to not spoil really any details either, but I mean, as much as this series is a fantastic just action show, there's amazing twists and turns throughout. The moral questions that it asks really stick with you and really just leave you with a lot to think about in your everyday life. Next, we have Vinland Saga, which is probably one of my favorite stories of all time. I think my favorite story of all time is going to be Lord of the Rings, but this is a very, very close second. I absolutely love the story that is told through this series. It is one that just gets you going and an action sense of things at the beginning, and you're following this very human revenge story that you can just quickly get on board with. But then as the series progresses and as this character ages, because you meet Thorfinn, the main character, as a child, and he just kind of has this excitement about life, this excitement about fighting glory in battle, fighting his enemies, and just he very much romanticizes that violence, which is very prevalent in the Viking culture that he lives in historically. But then through the different perspective that his father has on things, which he doesn't get to spend too much time with before his father's taken from him, which somewhat a spoiler, but it's kind of pivotal to the story. So it gets very early on in the series. But the way that moment shapes the rest of his life that we get to see throughout this story is so interesting and so powerful, especially when we move into season 2 of this story, or just as the manga progresses, because I've been reading the manga as well. When we get into the real growth of humanity as we mature, move from one season of life to another, when the things that we thought were our biggest purpose and really drove us, or in Thorfinn's case, that revenge that was just eating up his soul really and everything that he was, when something like that is forced to shift within you and you have to change those priorities, it really makes you look at things differently. And as he grows and changes and wants to become a different person, a better person, and really find the fullness of life rather than taking it away from himself and taking it away from others, it's an incredibly powerful story. There's so many amazing just religious parallels within this series that I love, and the redemption story that Thorfinn goes on, as well as the almost antithesis of that through characters like Canute throughout this story, is incredible. I'm only as far in the manga as the series anime has gone so far. So for those of you who have read ahead and are familiar with the rest of the story as it's coming to its conclusion, I can't wait to see where things will settle and land for Thorfinn's character, because he's one of the most compelling characters I've ever seen in a series. And like I said, this is one of my favorite stories of all time. I just am gripped by every moment, the little details, and this series, and I'm sure many can testify as well who have seen the series or read the manga, really makes you look at life and the things you value differently. And finally, I don't have this one in my collection because it's a recent release, but it is streaming on Netflix and it's almost at its completion. But we have the romance anime, The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity. I just wrapped this one up and it kind of consumed my life as I was watching it. I've still been thinking about it all the time. It's such a powerful story. Like I said, it's a romance. I'm not typically a romance person, but my goodness, when it's as wholesome and pure and good as Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity is, there's no denying how great this story is. It takes place in a high school setting. You follow Rintaro as the main character, and he's someone who's just kind of moving through life. He has certain assumptions that people have around him. He's a kind of a quiet guy. He's an intimidating guy. He's tall, like myself, so I can relate to him because of that. And I just kind of relate to his personality a lot, of just kind of being more reserved to himself a lot more. That's really how I was a lot in high school as well. And he meets this girl, Karuko, one day, and they just kind of form this special kind of bond and start just kind of doing life together. And the way that their relationship develops, the just authenticity and genuineness that they both carry, and even their friends, as their individual friends that they have become friends with one another, it's so powerful, and it's just so good. Like, not even like good quality, it's just good. It really shows you the power that just making an effort to be a good person can be, to be authentic, to share genuinely with one another and want the best in one another, to be understanding, to be forgiving to people, to be protective of people in a genuine, loving way. It's so good. I was obsessed with this series from every single episode, every single moment. I'm definitely jumping into the manga for this one because I don't want to wait for season 2. I just can't wait to see where this story continues to go. It's a love story I haven't felt so invested in such a long time, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. So those are the series that I think just really, anime-wise, changed my life perspective, and I think if you would check them out, they would really give you a different point of view of life, making you look at your life or the life around you differently and appreciate it in a different kind of way. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit different for me, more of just a real personal one, really just opening up myself to you. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below some other animes or even just movies and television that you think do a really good job shifting your life perspective, giving you a different point of view to look at the life you're living differently. Thanks for sticking around to the end. I'll see you in the next one.